So without further ado, Kev, why don't we go ahead and start that audio, and then we'll interrupt and give our picks as we go along.
Hey everybody, it's Peter H. from CKDJ Studios here, going to talk some UFC making their debut in China this weekend, and Stevie and I have agreed to do some pre-taping of my picks so we can still do the pick game here. And there will be 6 fights on the Fuel TV main card. Here in Canada, however, it will be on Sportsnet, so look forward to that this weekend. All right, the 2 Facebook fights I really want to take a look at are Riki Fukuda against Tom DeBlass, and Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres is fighting Motonobu Tezuka. I'm going to pick Riki Fukuda here. Tom DeBlass isn't in Fukuda's class, basically. That's what I'm going to say. And Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy, he needs this win. Tezuka is a newcomer to the UFC. Hell of a debut fight here. Caceres, if he fights his fight, he's going to win. But it's those newcomers. I'm a little wary on their first fight because you don't know how they're going to react on the big stage at the UFC level.
Alrighty, so any reaction to that, Steve?
Well, I think he's right about Riki Fukuda, even though he's lost 2 of his last 3 fights to Nick Ring and Costa Philippou. He is a class above Tom DeBlass. He's fought a much better caliber of guys from Rillo Ninja Hua to Steve Cantwell, so I would favor Fukuda in that fight. How about you?
Yeah, I think I will as well.
I'm going to go with Bruce Leroy in that one. How about you?
I don't know. Tezuka's quite a bit more experienced veteran. Let me take a look, see who he's fought.
Nobody that I can really recognize. I mean, there's only one name that even comes up as having fought on another card.
Oh, no, but there's still an awful lot of experience that he's got in there. I mean, he's 19-4 with 4 draws.
Yeah, but here's my thing about that. We heard the same thing about Tiger Sarnavsky going into his Bellator fight with Rich Clemente. We're like, he's got all this experience. He's beaten 20 fighters, and then it turned out he'd never faced anybody as good as Rich Clemente. So
yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. I think I'd give it to Caceres a little bit as well.
All right, so we're gonna go with a clean sweep on both of those fights. Let's move on to the main card.
Let's go to the Fuel TV main portion of the card. And you've got Takeya Mizugaki fighting Jeff Hougland in the first fight. Mizugaki since 2009 has been ping-ponging his wins and losses since his days in the WEC. His record is 15-7-2. Jeff Hougland's coming off his first loss in a while. His record is 10-5. Hougland, I believe, will be winning this fight. He's going to come off really pissed off. And, if Mizugaki can't control that, then it's not going to be Mizugaki's night, basically. That's what's going to happen in that fight.
So, Kev, your thoughts on Takeya Mizugaki?
I think I'm going to go with Jeff Hougland on this one.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of gut feeling.
Well, gut feeling has paid off for you in the past. It's also failed you dramatically. And I'm going to base it on the quality of opponents here as I did when I made our last pick, because I look at Mizugaki's record, and he's fought guys like Cole Escobedo and Ryan Yaya, top-notch fighters, and he's beaten them. So I don't see any reason for Mizugaki to beat Hougland, who is really what I would just call an also-ran, not anybody that's really ever had any wins of any note. In one of his first 3 fights, he got beaten by Gilbert Melendez badly, and since then he's kind of turned his career around, but he really needed to beat Yves Chaboin to put himself on the map, and he couldn't beat Yves Chaboin. And that just to me says this guy's really not going to get anywhere in the UFC.
There is that, I'll give it to you. But really, it's Mizugaki's just been extremely wishy-washy. Like Peter pointed out, since facing Miguel Torres back in 2009, he'll win a fight, he'll lose a fight, he'll win a fight, he'll lose a fight. He's a fun fighter to watch. I think Jeff Hougland has just got a lot more to prove here. With the record that Mizugaki has, obviously I don't think UFC is going to cut him if he has 2 losses in a row. Otherwise, I think Dana would have got tired of this game long ago and just cut him. So Hoagland's got a lot to prove here for a win. He's going to come in with a psychological mindset, knowing he has to get this win. I think he'll pull off a decision win.
All right, well, I guess we're going to split it on this one because I still think that overall Mizugaki's fought better caliber opponents and he's going to be the better fighter going into this fight. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one on the card.
It's going to be Zhang against John Tuck. John Tuck, you might remember him from The Ultimate Fighter Season 15. He fought Ale Quente to get into the house, and John Tuck, it's one of those fights that you really can't forget. He dislocated his toe. It looked like his toe was starting on a Tuesday and ending on a Wednesday. It was disgusting, a bad injury in the qualifying fight to get into the house. But he lost that fight, and subsequently he is here in the UFC now. He is fighting China's Zhang. Let's take a look at the record. Zhang is actually coming off 2 straight losses. His record stands at 15-3. John Tuck, he is 6-0 as a professional. UFC debut here. In this case, I am going to take the newcomer to the UFC. Fighters coming off 2 straight losses, they're going to come off like the backs against the wall here. And Tuck, he wants to impress in his UFC debut. This could be, now, I'm not saying that's my official prediction, but it has a good chance to be the fight of the night here, ladies and gentlemen.
So, who do you got in this one, Tuck or Zhang Tiequan?
I'm tempted to give it to Zhang Tiequan because of the experience factor, even though he's not fought anybody. John Tuck's really not fought anybody. Zhang's got that 2-fight losing streak going for him, though. I think I'm going to go with John Tuck on this one.
But if you look at the quality of opponents that Zhang Tiequan has faced, he's got a much better record in mixed martial arts, and that's kind of my theme for the night. On top of the fact that he's fighting in his home country, and if we've learned anything from UFC in Brazil, guys tend to do really well in their home country of late. So I'm predicting a big win for Zhang Tiequan here.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move on to the next fight on the card. Peter, what do you say?
Let's go to the next fight as Takanori Gomi fighting Mac Danzig. This fight, another one, 2 of my favorite fighters here. The Fireball Kid here, Takanori Gomi. He's 4-4 in his last 8. His record stands at 33-8-1. Mac Danzig, winner of the Ultimate Fighter. He's 3-5 in his last 8 fights, but 2 of those losses were against Hempson Matt Wyman. So you look at the record here for Mac Danzig. His record stands at 21-9-1. This could be a toss-up fight for me. However, I am going to go with Mac Danzig. Not by much. I hate to say this, but I think Danzig will probably win by decision here.
All right, Kev, your thoughts. Gomi versus Danzig.
This is tough. Peter said the last fight had potential to be fight of the night. I think this one has real potential to be fight of the night. These are 2 of my favorites on this card that I really enjoy watching. Pretty much on the record for their last couple of fights, they're about even.
Talk about guys who trade wins and losses. Look at Mac Danzig.
Yeah, Matt Danzig does, and Takanori Gomi, he lost to Ken Florian, won against Tyson Griffin, lost to Clay Guida and Nate Diaz, but then picks up again against Iji Mitsukoa.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is a coin flip fight, really.
Right?
Whatever you pick won't be wrong.
Yeah, and if it holds up and it becomes a fun fight, there's no losers there. I'm going to go with Takanori Gomi.
I sort of get this feeling watching Gomi fight of late that he's still got knockout power, but he's also fighting a different caliber of guys than he used to fight in Japan. And I think Mac Danzig takes advantage of that. So we'll move on to Peter's next pick.
Let's go to the next fight, and it's the Donger Dong Hong Kim against Paulo Thiago. I know the stun gun here, one of Stevie's favorite fighters. Let's take a look here. The Donger's 2-2 in his last 4. His record stands at 15-2-1. Paulo Thiago, he's 4-4 in his last 8. His record stands at 14-4. Never been a big fan of Paulo Thiago, so I'm going to give it to the Donger here. Probably by, I'm going to say by knockout. Why not?
I think Peter's right on the money with this one because Paulo Thiago, out of all the guys in UFC named Thiago, is probably the worst. He can't beat anybody of note. He didn't beat Diego Sanchez. He didn't beat Martin Kampmann. Hell, he didn't even beat Sire the Great when I didn't even know who the hell Sire the Great was. So I absolutely picked the stun gun to get knockout.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong picking the Donger on this one either.
All right, so next up on Peter's list, let's get to it.
Let's go to the semi-main event, and it's an interesting semi-main event as Thiago Silva fights Stanislav Nedkov. Silva here, 1-3-1 in his last 5, 14-3-1 overall. Nedkov, he's 1-0 in the UFC. He's undefeated as a professional at 12-0. I'm going to take Nedkov. I really don't like Silva's chances here. His only the no contest was because he failed a drug test that allowed his opponent to come back to the UFC. So, I mean, I really don't have a high opinion of Thiago Silva, to be honest. I think he'll be cut after this fight. Nedkov will knock him in the next week.
Well, I think Peter's on the money once again. This is not going to be a good night for guys named Thiago. And normally, with newcomers to the UFC, I give the argument, who have they fought? How good could they really be? That doesn't work in Nedkov's case because he's fought nothing but good guys before he got to the UFC. He fought Travis View, Kevin the Monster Randleman, and then he TKO'd Luis Kane in the first round of his UFC debut. So, to me, Nedkov's on a roll, and he's got knockout powers. So, I see him rolling this one as well.
Yeah, the one thing that bothers me is that Nedkov just has this really long layoff. But that said, back when he was fighting fairly regularly, he was facing some guys who were up and coming or top flight. I'm not quite sure you could count Kevin Randleman as top flight, but he was still a fairly known somebody when they did fight. That said, I'm kind of with Peter. I've kind of soured on him. I don't have a lot of faith in him. He is probably going to be cut after this. I'm going to pick Nedkov for the win as well.
All right, well, that only leaves one fight, Rich Ace Franklin versus Cung Lee, so let's hear what Peter has to say.
Let's go to the main event. It's Rich Ace Franklin fighting Cung Lee, and doesn't take a rocket science to figure out who I'm picking here. I'm going to go with Rich Franklin. He's 3-3 in his last 6, 29-6-1 overall. Cung Lee, he's 2-2 in his last 4, he's 8-2 overall. But I'm not a big fan of Cung Lee. I still consider him a part-time fighter. And Rich Franklin will school him in the main event in China. That's the main event. That's my main event pick.
Well, this one's definitely not going to the judges because the one thing Peter neglected to mention is that Cung Lee is going into this fight injured with a possibly broken foot that he can't even kick anybody with in training. So he's already got a limb down going into a fight with a guy who's going to come in prime shape, ready to go, and looking to reestablish himself in the middleweight division. I think Rich Franklin wins easily here.
Yeah, if Cung Lee is coming in injured, I think that pretty much seals the deal.